U.S. Vice President JD Vance took to the White House podium today to deliver some harsh words on how the media covered yesterday's shooting in Minnesota, where 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good was killed in her car by an ICE agent.
The way that the media, by and large, has reported this story has been an absolute disgrace. Everybody who's been repeating the lie that this is some innocent woman who was out for a drive in Minneapolis when a law enforcement officer shot at her, you should be ashamed of yourselves. You guys are meant to report the truth. How have you let yourself become agents of propaganda of a radical fringe that's making it harder for us to enforce our laws? The reporting over this has been one of the biggest scandals I've ever seen in media. I've never seen a case so misrepresented and misreported when you have a guy who is defending himself and is now being treated as some sort of federal assassin by so many of the people in this room.
Okay, let's start there with our reporter roundtable. Mia Rabson is Deputy Parliamentary Bureau Chief at the Canadian Press. Joël Denis Bellavance is the Parliamentary Bureau Chief for La Presse. And Catherine Cullen is the host of the CBC podcast, The House. It's good to see you all. This is not the week I expected we would come back to. JD, that was quite the moment, and that was only part of everything that was said. It was like living in the comments section. I mean, where does this leave the media right now in the U.S. in terms of covering this and navigating this when this sort of lecturing and dismissal of what people can watch on their phones is happening from the most powerful people in the world?
It is, I think, part of the enlarged Dunroe doctrine, which is to also not only to try to conquer the Western Hemisphere, but also to attack the media. And that's, been part of Mr. Trump's tactics to try to legitimize what he says and make true what is ostensibly not true. I watched this line of attack on TV, and I felt uncomfortable watching it as a reporter. Imagine those who were in the room being lectured and being attacked and being, treated like they were not professional people. Gosh, I'm glad that I was a few kilometers away from that room, because I think I would have walked out barely, just squarely, because this was, to me, the most vitriolic attack I've seen from a leader on the media and the freedom of the press.
Mia, we've all been in moments like tough conversations with the people you cover, right? I've had the F word and other words used at me by politicians, but this is about the killing of a 37-year-old woman, and we're less than 2 days into the investigation, and the argument is, don't say this person didn't act in self-defense because he was shooting this domestic terrorist who tried to run him over with the car. It is a remarkable thing to see from that particular position.
I mean, this is a classic, and maybe this is the wrong word to use in this situation, but a classic shoot the messenger tactic. They know that this is a problem for them. There have been growing problems for them with the ICE maneuvers in the United States. There's been growing unrest and unhappiness, even within some Republican wings of the party, Republicans within the party. They know that this is a problem, and they need to undermine what people were saying that they actually saw with their own eyes on video. They don't need this message to swell and come back at them and undermine everything that they're trying to do. And how do you do that? You assert that the people that are reporting on what happened are lying to you, that no, that's not actually what happened. That's, to me, it's a critical part of how the entire Trump administration has operated from the beginning. This is obviously an incredibly step up, or sort of heightening or expansion of how they're doing that, but it's a classic maneuver, and I'd love to think that people won't fall for it, because they can, with their own eyes, see what happened in that video.
Well, there's kind of two messages: don't believe them, and don't you dare.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To both. I mean, Catherine, what are your thoughts on what we saw there?
I mean, I think as a journalist, part of my reaction, thinking about the other journalists in that room, is don't take your eyes off the ball. I do think when you are a journalist in those situations, you understand that this is a political tactic, as Mia was discussing, that's playing out here, and let's face it, we all know there's a trust problem with media, right? And so for some people in the audience, this is activating a sort of confirmation bias. Yeah, I don't trust the media. Yeah, I am worried about what they say. And perhaps that allows the message to get through a little bit more easily. And so as journalists, I think our responsibility in cases like that is to double down on the indisputable facts, to double down on the analysis. There is video evidence here. It is clear that different people are coming to different interpretations of what happened based on the multiple angles here. But to present this evidence clearly, fairly, and to keep focused on what this is fundamentally about. The story that is playing out in Minneapolis is obviously incredibly bad for the Trump administration, and that is part of the reason that we're seeing such an intense vitriolic leaning in. So keeping focused on what is at the heart of this, and I think, frankly, being careful about the discussion around the media, too, because a certain amount of pearl clutching doesn't reflect well on us. This is challenging. We want there to be free speech, but I think we're all generally uncomfortable talking about ourselves. And I would also say, like, think back to enemies of the people, right? Like the Trump at rallies pointing at journalists. This is not an unfamiliar piece of the playbook.
It just shows that how difficult it has become to do your job as a reporter in the United States right now. It's a democracy. Yesterday, you had somebody on your show that was saying that it's hard to consider today the United States as a functioning democracy.
Yeah,
well, that's one
Yeah.
example. That's one example. When you've got the second most powerful person in the United States attacking the media and its work the way he did today, that makes it even harder for reporters to do their job, to bring information without filters to their readers or their audience. So, I mean, it makes being a reporter in Washington even more difficult.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, I agree with Catherine. Like, you just have to sort of set that aside and continue to do your job and do it well and report the facts as you know them and not expand on what those facts are. I mean, the media should also not be expressing any motivations for anyone yet, because we don't know what the motivations were. So report what we saw, what happened, and let the investigation take its course. If media and reporters allow something like this to change how we report and how we react and what we do the next time or even the remainder of this time, then essentially, he's getting what his intentions are, and we can't let that happen.
But, you know, it's interesting because I don't think this is just a challenge for journalists in the United States, right? No. Like, we're kind of working in this profession in what has really become a post-truth world, right? Like, the way that we're all segmented into these tribes by the algorithms and different information silos. Like, when I was a young man with hair, and you'd watch Knowlton Nash or Peter Mansbridge and Lloyd Robertson and read the papers, there's a common set of facts with a common set of problems, and the argument was over the solutions, and now the argument's over facts. And it's just it is a difficult place for democracies and society to be, right? So, like, we can stick with it, but then when you're dismissed from the White House podium and then the algorithms divide it into a different world, it becomes, does it get through?
I don't disagree with what you're saying at all, although I think part of how I think about what we do has changed dramatically as the media landscape has changed, as social media has changed. And there was a time when people were just, and also I should say, I think a certain amount of pushback is healthy. The media is a powerful force.
But good faith pushback as opposed to the bad faith.
Yes, you want people to ask critical questions, but I also think we live in a world where, it's not just journalists taking abuse on Twitter. The person who served me at the coffee shop this afternoon is also being berated more. We're in a society, and we can sort of chicken and egg this whole thing, but a lot of people are dealing with more abuse in their day-to-day life. And I think also, if we want to make a point here that I think goes beyond the journalism itself, part of my fear about what JD Vance said is just the fundamental way in which it inflames this already incredibly volatile situation. I know throughout the show, David, there have been conversations about how this might affect the investigation, such as it is, but this is already such a volatile situation, and does it contribute to or lead to more people being hurt or even killed? I think, this is not, it is in no way just about politicians and media. It is about the society we live in and the moment we are all trying to navigate through. I think it makes our work that much more fundamentally important, but it is incredibly challenging.
Yeah, but there's a toxicity there now because of all of this, right? And it's everywhere. And like, I love my career and have gotten to do many things, but if I was like 24 again, I wouldn't do this. I'd do something else, because all of this and the abuse and the harassment, it is pretty profound.
But I would argue that we're going through some cycles, and to my colleagues Catherine's point, I'm more optimistic today about the nature of my job, because people have seen what social media has been doing to the debate, and they want real information done by real people with credibility. And who's that? It's all of us, I would argue, around the table.
Speak for yourself. I've got a bunch of mentions just in the last 5 minutes that say otherwise.
But I can say with confidence that I see it in Quebec. In Quebec, people are turning away from social media and trying to look for credible sources. and to respond to their desire for real and credible information, they turn to credible media like La Presse, for example.
Okay, I don't know much more than what has just moved on the wires, and I'm not going to ask you to weigh in on this. I just want to give the audience a heads up. Portland police in Oregon, 2 people are in hospital following a shooting involving federal agents. Conditions of the 2 people are unknown. I don't think we're going to get any specifics on that at the time we have left here today, but this is obviously part of what we were worried about and watching for in the United States. So that is the latest we have on the wires that came out today. Again, incredible. This is the moment we're in. Sorry, just had to get that in there. But Mia, do you want to pick up what JD had to say, that people maybe the corruption and pollution of social media. The problem with this as a news source with social media is your drinking water and your sewer water coming out of the same pipe. And we need to separate those 2 things, and, so people can know what they're dealing with.
And it just adds to the critical, and what Catherine was talking about, the fundamental role the media play, and why we have to still do our jobs to the best of our abilities and make sure that we don't allow this to change how we, or alter how we do things, that we do continue to question, and we don't report verbatim when we know that there's misinformation or facts that are coming on. If we allow this to change how we do our jobs, do we make mistakes? Absolutely. But usually, most credible media will, if they make a mistake, they will admit it, they will correct it, and they will move on. And if you don't correct the mistakes, then that's a problem, and you acknowledge that we are not perfect, we are human beings, but you report the information to the best of your ability as it's available, and you cannot allow that to change.
All right, Catherine, last word to you, and then I want to talk about a former journalist who's going to soon be a former politician.
I would like to talk I would say in the last year, one of the points of hope. I mean, again, it's frankly, it is very uncomfortable to talk about this, right? I don't think, like, talking about ourselves, I realize we put ourselves on television and people may think that we like to be the center of attention. We talk a lot about our craft. We spend a lot of time in our newsrooms talking about the right way to do things, but it is a bit difficult to talk about this. And I guess the concern that we're navel-gazing or valorizing ourselves too much. But I will say in the last year, in the conversations I've had with people out in the world, Canadians have been incredibly engaged in the news at this difficult time. And I think people's desire to better understand the world they live in and to try to make sense of this difficult moment, I find it really encouraging in the midst of a very difficult and less than encouraging time.
I share that view too.
Well, look, I'm a full-time TV host, so I'm all about the navel gazing. But look,
what a beautiful navel it is, David.
But there is an erosion happening, and it's important to talk about it when you see these manifest moments, because looking away from it and kind of refusing to acknowledge it and talk about it, it does no good, right?
And I think we've done that for many years.
No,
we
I hear you.
Pretend it wasn't happening, and maybe we do need to confront it a little bit more.
Yeah. When norms and institutions are getting steamrolled, we should point that out. Okay. To the less controversial Canadian news, Liberal MP Chrystia Freeland announced she will be resigning her seat tomorrow. This after Freeland took a new job working for the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Freeland's announcement comes the same week Nunavut NDP MP Laurie Idlout told our CBC North colleagues she has decided not to cross the floor to the Liberals for now. Idlout says she's been asked to consider crossing the floor by both Liberal Party members and her own constituents, but decided against it at this time. So here we are, Mia, in a minority parliament. Laurie Idlout, I am told she was very close to going, meeting potentially around the 18th of December, where she was potentially going to go. That did not get the Liberals to 172, and now Chrystia Freeland's 4th resignation since December of 2024 brings them one further away from the majority level. What do you make of,
she
of
gets
these
one more, is it free?
I'm not. Well, do you count Deputy Prime Minister and Finance as separate or one? Because, here we are.
I mean, this resignation has been months in the making. I mean, we knew, I think, as soon as she left cabinet that she was not going to be in the Liberal caucus for long. She had already said she wasn't going to be running again in the next election. And when that election is, potentially 3 years away, there was little likelihood she was just going to sit in the backbenches for 3 years. So I don't know that anyone's surprised by this. I think the Prime Minister has known this was coming for a while. It's part of their plans. The Liberals don't really have to have a confidence vote or anything in the immediate future.
But by March, by the end of the fiscal year.
By the end of March, but by resigning now, the by-elections can actually be held in early March, and by-elections, I said, because I might be expecting a few more possible resignations coming up. But I think if there are going to be those that are leaving, they're going to happen soon. You're going to see those by-elections happen really quickly, as this is also part of the Prime Minister putting his stamp on the party. He didn't really have a chance to do that before the election because he was busy running to be the leader himself and get himself elected the first time. So I think this is sort of part and parcel of what we've been expecting over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
I don't think it changes much for the Prime Minister.
Catherine, people I don't think are surprised that Chrystia Freeland is leaving. She seems to have been surprised that there would be such controversy over her working for two different governments in two different countries, but here we are.
I mean, it's really, you think about the Chrystia Freeland political story, and we have to acknowledge she has been one of the biggest political players in this country in the last decade. And the roller coaster, the ups and the downs, the NAFTA renegotiation, just a year ago, her dramatic first of 4 or 5 resignations. This was an unforced error that I think, unfortunately, it's widely viewed. She made a mistake. It forced her to make this resignation tomorrow. It taints the end of her time in politics, and that is a shame because it is a remarkable record. But here we are, and I have noted that even amidst all the criticism of the way she has handled this and a problem that she should have seen coming, and that the Liberals should have seen coming. They should not have found themselves in this situation. It was a bad decision. The fact that she is taking on this particular role has gotten, I think, widespread credit. So she's moving on to new things. I think at some point that became inevitable, if not on December 16th of a year previous when she took down Justin Trudeau. Certainly the leadership race itself meant that it was only really a matter of time.
Yeah, this story was not supposed to get out this week. I'm told that it was not supposed to be announced by the president of Ukraine himself. It was supposed to be announced by Madame Freeland at a later date. And the fact that Mr. Zelensky announced it on Twitter forced her to sort of say, Mr. Prime Minister, I'm leaving. So that's sort of caught her off guard, I'm told. And the plan was...
But that still doesn't solve the problem of having taken a job with a foreign government.
I know that, but the optics are bad. I think she recognized that, and that's why she sort of advanced the notice of her resignation. Tomorrow it's going to be official, but still the damage has been done for her. In terms of exiting politics, that's not the way to do it.
Right.
I think it's really notable that she's announced that she's leaving. She's, as Catherine said, she's been a formidable player in politics for the last 12, 13 years. There were not a lot of tributes to Chrystia Freeland flowing from Liberals on Twitter or any other social media in the last 24 hours. The Prime Minister has not posted a statement about her departure yet. He posted something after she announced that she was taking the Zelensky role, but he has not said anything since she said that she was actually stepping down as an MP. I think it's kind of sad for that to be the way she's going out.
I get this as she wanted to stay and say goodbye in Parliament.
That's kind of what we were expecting, although we had also been told that she informed the Prime Minister of this on Christmas Eve.
24th of December, yes.
That she, so he's known for weeks, or a couple weeks at least, that this was coming, and they sort of did have a plan that the president of Ukraine might have upended.
No kidding.
But she hasn't actually said when she's taking this role up either. I mean, did it we know when it all happened, but we don't know any sort of those dates. But this isn't really the way she should have.
And as a former journalist, not very forthcoming, like with interview opportunities, like we've invited her on. Bob Ray was on the show this week, and he was having dinner with her that night. I said, please let her know we have space.
She hasn't done any interviews since she left cabinet, as far as I'm aware, and that's also a problem because she was representing the government in Ukraine, and she hasn't answered any questions about it. So
JD, we've only got 60 seconds left, but before we broke for the holidays, you were pretty confident that there might be movement crossing the floor. I was hearing even then, Laurie Idlout, watch her, because you got the sense something was happening. And when the Prime Minister said to Rosie Barton in the year-end interview, our agenda appeals to a broad spectrum of MPs, I immediately thought, New Democrat. Where do you think it is now with the majority play?
Well, there's a step back to be taken because of Madame Freeland's resignation, but I still am convinced that sooner or later, this government will be will form a majority government in the House of Commons because more people will be defecting, going to the Liberal government. It's only a matter of days or weeks, I would say. Yes, I still remain convinced that it's going to happen because Tim Hodgson and Stephen McKinnon, two very influential ministers in this government, are still having some chit-chat with some possible candidates.
Right. Catherine, I mean, the Conservatives are the ones, I mean, now that Laurie Idla's not going, that's who you watch for, right?
I thought it was fascinating to see that Michael Ma will be on the trip to China with the Prime Minister, I guess.
This is what it gets you.
And better.
Yeah. So I mean, we shall see. I think in 2026, anything is possible.
Yeah, we're off to a heck of a start in this year.
I will point out, nobody saw Michael Ma coming.
Yeah.
They sure didn't. People learned there was an MP named Michael Ma, and he was crossing the floor mostly at the same time. And now he's going on the foreign trip with the Prime Minister. Catherine Cullen, JD Vance, Mia Rabson, thank you all so much.